Mahmoud Abbas, for the last 30 years, have been promising to advance the conflict peacefully. So he has been talking about peaceful resistance, the negotiations, and so on. And since Oslo, he hasn't been able to achieve any single achievement that he can speak of for more than 30 years.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this, I think, last but one panel of the conference. My name is Andreas Reinicke. I'm the director of the Deutsches-Orient-Institut and a former diplomat. And I'm happy to welcome you to this session. I will call it in short, Trump and the new situation in the Middle East. The official title is much longer, but I keep it like this. We will start with a presentation from Farah Bdour from Jordan. She is a political analyst from Jordan. And then, ladies first, I will just introduce the people to you in the order of their, not necessarily in the order of their speeches. Is Hiba Husseini. Hiba Husseini is a lawyer from Jerusalem, from the Husseini family, and someone, I don't think whether you would call it activist, but someone who is engaged in finding solutions in the Israel-Palestinian conflict. Then on the left is Hesham Youssef. He is a former diplomat, was with the Arab League, Chief of Staff of two Secretary Generals of the Arab League, then Assistant Secretary General of the Organization of Islamic Countries, and is now also a political commentator. And last but not least, Yossi Beilin, former Minister of Justice and politician, I would say someone who has always an idea if there is a problem, and always a solution if there's a problem. So this is the panel which I can introduce to you. And we start now with you, with Farah, with an introduction on the topics. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and thank you everyone for coming. If this is working or not. Okay. Maybe I'll start by setting the stage and talk about Trump first term policies in the region, and that would give us an introduction into discussing his second term policies. You know, the US Middle East policy during Trump first term went through a significant transformation. It started obviously to move forward toward the transactional diplomacy and moving away from the multilateral approaches. Central to these policies was obviously the Abraham Accords, where we saw Israel signing peace treaties with several Arab states. And while these accords were celebrated as a diplomatic achievement, they definitely sidelined the Palestinian issue, and they moved away from the traditional land for peace formula as outlined in the Arab Peace Initiative in 2002. In addition to the Abraham Accords, during Trump's first term, the administration took a number of measures. The administration recognized Jerusalem as a capital for the Israeli state. They recognized the Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights. They cut the funding from the UNRWA, and obviously a lot of us remember the deal of the century during the first term, which was particularly alarming for Jordan, given the fact that this deal proposed the annexation of parts of the West Bank and threatened to jeopardize Jordan's demographic and territorial integrity, and also ignited that fear of Jordan becoming an alternative homeland for Palestinians. Now, during that time, the public sentiment towards the United States and Israel, of course, there was an American anti-Israeli sentiment in the streets. We witnessed a number of protest calling for annulling the peace treaty and redefining and reconsidering the Jordanian-American relationship. On a formal level, in order to deal with that, these measures, Jordan adopted an extensive diplomatic effort working with Arabic and European partners to push back and keep the prospects for the two-state solution alive. But while doing that, it also worked with the Americans and kept the channels of communication with the Americans open, highlighting the importance of the stability of Jordan, not only to the region, but to the Americans as well. Now, with the second Trump administration, Jordan is facing a number of challenges. This is definitely a transformed Middle East, a Middle East that was transformed by the October 7th, the atrocities of October 7th, which really ignited a chain reaction that shaped the Middle East, and Israel's commitment to create a new security reality for the state of Israel, and according to which it took a number of measures. It started with the decapitating of Hamas military and governance capabilities in Gaza, with the erosion of Hezbollah moral and operational standing in Lebanon, and both they accelerated the collapse of Bashar al-Assad regime in Syria. And all of these developments obviously created a different power structure in the region, and created a number of threats to Jordan. We can later, discuss the threats that Jordan faces from Iran, from Syria, and from Israel, and how the next Trump administration policies on three of these pockets will impact Jordan's security and national security and stability. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Farah. So we have a good idea of Jordan. Now, if you look at what was happening during the last days, I would say, days and weeks, I would see three items or three topics or three areas which we try to discuss. One is, obviously, speaking of Gaza, the idea of Trump, what to do with Gaza. The second is what we've seen yesterday, an alternative plan of Egypt. And the third is, which we should also have a look at, what happens to the whole region? What does it mean for the whole region? So if maybe we try with the first issue of what does it mean to, what does this Trump plan mean? Maybe we ask Hiba, what's your sense? What could this mean for obviously Palestine, and maybe also for the neighboring countries?
Thank you very much. The Trump peace plan, the Trump plan for Gaza, the so-called Riviera plan, came. Perhaps the Riviera idea, which beneath it lies the issue of transfer and displacement and forced displacement of Palestinians, 2.5 million almost Palestinians into Jordan and into Egypt. Where not only ideas that came down from a Palestinian perspective as totally unfeasible, but also insulting and dehumanizing, to tell a people that have suffered for 15 months that now the solution for you is to transfer you. They withstood pain and misery and hunger and death and airstrikes and what have you, only to be told, instead of now we are going to help you rebuild your lives and rebuild the Gaza Strip and deal with the trauma and deal with the emotional pain and suffering, all of a sudden now we're telling them you have to leave. So it is, again, really came down very, very hard on the one hand. On the other hand, it created this whole sense of defiance among the Gazans. And we saw very well how when the ceasefire took place, almost 500,000 went back to the north walking without any shelter, without any food. So this sense that this land belongs to us and we will not be forced out of our land. Remember, Gazans are mostly refugees from 1948. So the idea of leaving and to be forced to leave did not come, was not a good strategy on the part of the Trump administration or Mr. Trump himself. So again, the idea is that we will hold steadfast and we will stay on the land and we will not have anybody remove us and force us out of our land. And then to add insult upon injury in the sense that this is going to become a Riviera for third parties. I mean, the Gazans will not be returning, so they will be, now we are going to take the Gaza population, make it the problem of Egypt and Jordan, and develop Gaza as a Riviera, real estate, tourism. I mean, it's all surreal, unrealistic. And that probably in of itself also prompted the Egypt plan, because as a reaction, we also saw the reaction of Saudi Arabia when Prime Minister Netanyahu said that Saudi Arabia, the Palestinians can have a home in Saudi, or a country in Saudi Arabia. So it all ignited this whole negative, deeply sending more wounds to the Palestinians or inflicting more wounds upon the Palestinians, and all of this created a sense that okay, the Trump plan way back then in 2020 gave Israel the recognition of Jerusalem as its capital. The issue of the West Bank settlements, the settlement enclaves in the West Bank, and this yet one more addition to the whole dynamic in the relationship between the Palestinians and the Israelis that is now, by President Trump and the US policies, is taking us farther away and farther away from a two-state solution. So all of this has not lent itself to creating conditions on the ground that would bring the people together, rather than create more and more division among the Palestinians and the Israelis. And of course, it's all seen as Israel, the US is backing Israel unconditionally yet again and again.
Hiba, maybe one piece of information. We know not very much about the Trump plan, apart from that it is apparently a Riviera. We have this strange movie, but there has been a plan from Trump already, the 2020s. Can you maybe elaborate a little bit on what that means without going too much into detail? So that gives us an idea in what direction he may think.
Well, I mean, the Riviera, that's why, as I said, the Riviera comes in the context that this land does not belong to the Palestinians. Jerusalem is the capital of the state of Israel. This was part of the plan, and Israel actually he recognized Jerusalem as the capital of the state of Israel, and Israel immediately moved the embassy, and the U.S. immediately moved the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. The West Bank settlements. I mean, he thought he was addressing with a solution the West Bank settlements, but the way he addressed it is to create enclaves of Israeli settlements in the West Bank, which meant, from a Palestinian perspective, that Area C and all the territory of the West Bank is being really divided up into Swiss cheese, where Palestinians have no room to have a state. I mean, how can we declare state in an area where you have all these enclaves of settlements and settlers are having access, and we cannot define borders, we cannot, so all these steps that were presented in the plan in a way undermined again the opportunity to have a negotiated settlement over the critical issues, the settlements and the borders and so forth and so on.
Thank you. Maybe now, as we had a discussion on Jordan, or the effects a little bit on Jordan, maybe we're moving to Egypt, and Hesham, maybe we can explain also to us a little bit what it might mean if a Trump plan is realized and millions of Palestinians would go to Egypt. Why is Egypt so opposed to it, apart from the whole moral issues which we already have addressed?
Thank you very much, Andreas. It's a pleasure to be here. Before going into Egypt, maybe a few words about the overall situation. And the overall situation is quite dire in relation to the dichotomy that is faced or is facing the main parties associated with the conflict. So if we start with Israel, Israel does not have a vision as to how the conflict can be resolved and what the end game should be, and is not willing to accept that the Palestinians are not going anywhere, and they will not accept anything short of self-determination and having a state of their own. And in the context of the war on Gaza and in the implementation of the ceasefire, now Israel has presented additional conditions that they want, in the context of the continuation of the ceasefire agreement, to have a demilitarized Gaza, to have implemented the Trump idea that the Palestinians should leave, or at least that the leadership of Hamas should leave. And then, as far as who should govern Gaza, they are continuing to say no Hamas and no Palestinian Authority, which is, no Hamas is understandable, but no Palestinian Authority, which is the authority that Israel is still working with in the West Bank on a day-to-day basis, including security coordination and so on, makes it very difficult. And also Israel's army is extremely extended. They have forces in Gaza, forces in the West Bank that they say may stay for another year, forces in Syria, forces in Lebanon, and not to speak about the situation with Iran. Now, as for the Palestinians, they also have a dichotomy. And the dichotomy is that the PA, Mahmoud Abbas, for the last 30 years, have been promising to advance the conflict peacefully. So he has been talking about peaceful resistance, the negotiations, and so on. And since Oslo, he hasn't been able to achieve any single achievement that he can speak of for more than 30 years. And Hamas, that was offering an alternative of armed resistance, as a result of the current war, have resulted in the total destruction of Gaza. So neither the model that was advocating for negotiations and the peaceful approach worked, nor did the one advocating for armed resistance worked. And then comes the United States with another problem, and this is the problem of having to be too close to Israel, with the president saying, I am a Zionist, and willing to do everything possible to support Israel, and then a new administration with the president saying, I am the best friend of Israel. So there is a competition as to who is the best friend of Israel, and indicating, the new administration indicating that it is willing to accept any steps that are taken by Israel. So if hostages are not released, then hell will break loose. Israel can go back to the war. They can do whatever they wish. And the answer is, we will support whatever you decide. And is not willing to put pressure to bear in order for progress to be achieved. The peace treaties that were signed between Egypt and Israel couldn't have been signed without pressure from the US on both sides. And the peace treaty that was signed between Jordan and Israel couldn't have been achieved without pressure on both sides from the United States. Unfortunately, the United States is not willing to do so from the perspective of the region. And then came the idea of Trump for the Riviera. Not a single country in the world supported this idea. And Hiba spoke about it, so I will not go much further. But I'll give you just one example of the implications that was mentioned by the president of Egypt early on when the war started and Israel was pressuring Egypt to accept mass displacement of Palestinians in Egypt. And the example was, okay, you want the Palestinians to come here. And when they come here, if they attack Israel, because they will be forcibly displaced and they will still want to resist and inflict pain on Israel. If they do so and attack Israel from Egypt, what will Israel do? Will it respond, or will it say, well, we push them, we bear the responsibility? So this may result in instability, and of course, the situation and the relations between Egypt and Israel have declined tremendously in the last few years, and particularly since the war started. And as a result, Egypt decided, in light of the plan, idea that was presented by Trump, to prepare its own plan. And it worked with the Palestinians, worked with the UNDP, worked with the World Bank, and devised a plan that was adopted yesterday in an Arab summit. And we can go into details about what was agreed if you wish to do so.
Thanks very much, Youssef. So we have two plans, two vague plans, one very vague from Trump, one more detailed from Egypt. Now, Yossi, what's your view on this? And maybe also the question of Israel's security. Maybe you give your judgment also on this aspect.
Thank you very much. The Trump idea is something that apparently he took out of his sleeve in the last moment during the meeting with Bibi Netanyahu, and it is too big a compliment to call it a plan, because his drawer is empty. So he suggested an idea, and during his talk he apparently fell in love with this project. But the main problem here is not that it is not feasible and it will never happen. We all know that it will never happen. It is a childish idea. The problem is that he is the leader of the free world, and if he says something like that, people cannot ignore it. Now, who are the ones who cannot ignore it especially? It's the Palestinians, and it is the Jordanians. First of all, it is the Palestinians. Because what was done by Trump is to actually tell the Palestinians, you are our soldiers, we will play with you in our chess game. And maybe now we will move you from Gaza to another place, and you will never be allowed to come back. The fragility, I mean the feeling that you can easily be thrown away from where you are once and again, And they will never believe that it is not Israel which invented it, because Israel invents everything in this world. Then the idea, the unbearable ease of suggesting a transfer of millions of people in the 21st century from one place to another and telling them you will never come back is unbelievable. It is unbelievable. And it may create, I hope I'm wrong, but it may create violence by frustrated people. It will call for violence. And the Jordanians, I mean, from my talks with Jordanian leaders, I know that whatever is happening on the West Bank is having ramifications on the East Bank of the Jordan River. And the idea that Jordan is Palestine is still the biggest fear of the Hashemite kingdom. And when the American president is suggesting something like this, and God knows what are his ideas about where he wants to send the Palestinians, the obvious is Jordan. It is close. You just cross the river. If it is summer, you don't have even to swim. And they are there. So I think that the main issue is not, I mean, we are all saying, no, it is not feasible, whatever. Of course it is not feasible. But it doesn't mean that you can erase it easily and say that it is not important, because he did something which is really unforgivable. Unforgivable to put the Palestinians in such a situation. And you know, for Israel, it has direct ramifications. I mean, if the Palestinians are frustrated, if they believe that we are behind it, if they believe that our best friend in the world is the one who can suggest something like that, it might have some impact on the relations between Israel and the Palestinians. And I cannot tell that these relations are very quiet. What does the idea tell me? That we, Palestinians and Israelis, are the ones who really care about our future, because we are very selfish peoples, and we want to live in peace. Nobody wants to live in peace in the Middle East more than us. And this is why it is our role. I can tell you, nobody pushed us to Oslo. Nobody. It was our idea. And the Americans were so much out of the picture that after 8 months of secret negotiations, in August 93, the two foreign ministers of Norway and Israel, Holst and Peres, once the agreement was signed secretly on August 18th at night, decided that they had to go to tell the Americans, after all, we must tell the parents. And for how long could we do it secretly and by ourselves? So they went to warn Christopher, the Secretary of State, who spent his vacation, the summer vacation, on the West Coast. Dennis Ross was called by him. The two foreign ministers came, and they were so excited and even fearful that the Americans will tell them, you know what, it's a very nice idea. By the way, you could have told us something about it, but you didn't tell us anything, so don't expect that we will help you. What do you want us to do now? You need money? What did you come for? This was the fear. But this was not the case. Warren Christopher was very emotional, blessed them, took the phone, called the president. He told Clinton about the strange two groups which succeeded to have an agreement. The young president, who had no experience in international affairs at all, found himself actually conducting a huge event that you all remember. And the picture that we all remember from this event is a tall young guy with two elderly leaders on both sides. And that was the picture of the Oslo Agreement. So each of us usually gets back to his own experience. And it tells me that we don't need a mediator. We need, in many cases, a facilitator. That is important. But even that is not a must because of our selfishness. We know each other. We can make peace. We can suggest ideas. And that is something that we have to do if we always wait for the next elections in the United States. And this is what we did. I mean, you can write the history of the Palestinian people and Israel from the aspect of the elections in the United States. Let's wait for the next president. This one is not good enough. He hates Jews, he hates Palestinians, whatever. And the next one, you know, he wrote a book once when he was in school or whatever, and he hints there that he likes us very much, so let us wait for the next one. And I think that we are old enough to understand that this is not our future. And I was delighted to see what Egypt did the other day. It's a long plan. I cannot claim that I read every word, but I read most of it. And the fact that it comes from the region after a crazy idea of a very important person is telling the whole story. Because usually we are lazy. We don't suggest ideas, we refer to the ideas of others. Here, there was an idea from the region. I think that we can negotiate it, talk about it, but the general idea is that Hamas will not be there, will not govern Gaza. Gaza should be demilitarized or non-militarized, like the West Bank eventually in our future peace agreement. And for the time being, it is the role of the Palestinian Authority, which was there until June 2007, to be in charge until we are signing a peace agreement and there is a Palestinian state. I don't think, I believe that the Palestinian Authority should be improved, but it is not the only country which should be improved. There is a limit. There is a limit to what we can demand. Not all the countries with which we negotiated were asked by us to improve themselves. It is a little bit too much. So I think that what we should do is to do it ourselves. And I'm sure that we are able to do that. And what happened yesterday proves to me that it is not impossible.
Thank you very much. I think it was a very good analysis. And maybe we should even look more into the details of the plan. But looking at the watch, we have another good 10 minutes. So I suggest just to have a glimpse that we go a little bit into the region. And Farah, if you give us an idea of what you think Trump may mean for the region beyond Israel, Gaza, and maybe if you go there in the last round, we will be able to relate to this and maybe also a few more ideas to the Egyptian plan. But please.
Mm-hmm. Sure. As I said, with the new second Trump administration, Jordan will face a new Middle East, a transformed Middle East, a Middle East that was shaped by Israel's commitment to create a new security reality for the State of Israel. And by doing that, Israel succeeded to weakened the Iranians' proxies in the region and directly attack the circle of fire that the strategy that Iran adopted for so many years. And by doing that, this power imbalance was created because basically Iran is facing an existential question about how to deal with these losses. Will it focus on accelerating its nuclear program and in order to enhance its negotiating position, or will it invest in resurrecting these proxies, or even invest in a new proxies in order to enhance its position in the region? In either case, Jordan, and I'm talking here from the point of view of Jordan will find itself in the way. It is no secret that historically Iran has viewed Jordan as a critical geography for attacking Israel, and for so many years, and especially in the past few years, the Iranians have intensified their efforts to destabilize Jordan. Just last year, Jordan security forces have uncovered a number of terrorist cells linked to Iran. These cells wanted to smuggle weapons to the West Bank, and some of that wanted to use these weapons inside Jordan. So this is to give you an idea about the problems that we are facing with being caught in this Iranian-Israeli struggle. When it comes to Trump policies on Iran, we know so far that the Trump administration may prefer to adopt a maximum pressure and move away from any military actions against the Iranians. Mr. Trump have reiterated a number of occasions that the success of this administration will be measured by the number of wars this administration will end and the number of wars that this administration will avoid to enter. And with that, we have an idea and hope that the American administration will resort to the diplomatic solution. But at the same time, we know that Israel has a sense of urgency and a sense that it needs to act right now while Iranians' proxies are in their worst case in order to attack, sort of speak, the head of the octopus. And again, Jordan will be caught in the middle. On the other hand, there were many questions about how the Trump administration, for example, will deal with HTS, or Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. This is the new address for the Syrian affairs on the Jordanian northern border. And just to give a context, there is no question that the Jordanians are happy with the collapse of Bashar al-Assad regime, but with the HTS being on our northern border, it also brings all sets of challenges. And whether the HTS succeeded or failed, it will have these challenges. Immediately when the HTS took place or took the authority in Damascus, they sent some positive signals to Jordan, and the Jordanian foreign minister was among the first to visit Damascus, a visit that was reciprocated by Asad al-Shibani. And in Jordan there was held the Al-Aqaba meeting, and the whole purpose of that meeting was to bridge the divergent views regarding how to deal with HTS and try to draft this regional roadmap in order to integrate and bring back Syria to the Arab fold. Now, we know that the HTS has to deal with a number of problems. The first among these is to prove that it has transformed from a militant and terrorist group into a governing group. It has to work on its reconciliation with the many militant factions and the different social components in Syria, the Kurds, the Druze, the Alawites, the Christians, and it has to deal with the remnants of Bashar al-Assad and the Iranian continuous effort to resurrect this oxygen corridor toward Lebanon. And above all of that, we need to mention two other challenges that the HTS need to deal with, which is the dynamic between Turkey and Saudi Arabia. For the time being, these powers are aligned when it comes to their interest in stabilizing Syria, but this is the Middle East, and we know it's about time, or it's a matter of time, that their views about how to deal and run the situation in Syria will differ at some point. And lastly, we have Israel, which right now occupies Syrian territories and tries to push for a federal governance in Syria and try to create this southern buffer in the Syrian territories and using the Druze component. So all of this to say that the HTS is facing a lot of problems, and how it's going to deal with these problems going to have a direct impact on Jordan when we're talking about the border security, the smuggling of drugs and weapons, the terrorist infiltration. We know that ISIS right now in the border between Syria and Iraq, and also in such scenarios of how HTS going to deal with these challenges. Will it revert to its militant origins or not? And in case of success, we know that the Islamic identity of this regime will interplay domestically in Jordan. Very quickly, when it comes to
half a minute,
Trump's policies in Syria, they're most likely to apply minimum intervention, reduce support for the SDF, and maybe lifting some sanctions that will benefit Jordan.
Thank you very much. Are we allowed to go a little longer? Yes, I think so, because we started a little later. I wanted to ask Hesham, because you gave the idea of the region, but you were also Assistant Secretary General of the Organization of Islamic Countries, and which is where the headquarters is in Jeddah, so you know also Saudi Arabia in particular. It's worth, again, a whole day to discuss this, so you only have a minute or two, but if you could give us a little idea of what the Trump plans might mean for the region, or the Trump ideas, or what you expect from Trump, as far as we know, for the region, and this in 120 seconds.
Well, it's not clear, because I don't think that the administration has made up its mind. But there are three main issues that the administration will need to come up with positions in relation to them quite soon. Why? Because President Trump is expected to go to Saudi Arabia. And as far as Saudi Arabia is concerned, there are three crucial issues in which they would need to discuss with the United States. And I'm sure that it will not only be Saudi Arabia, but I think other Arab countries will be involved in these discussions. One of them is Yemen and what will happen in Yemen. The second is Iran, and the third is Israeli-Palestinian conflict. In relation to Yemen, there has been attacks as a result of the Houthis' activities in the Red Sea, but they were not conclusive. But then there has to be a solution. And Saudi Arabia and the Houthis were negotiating, and they were close to an agreement, but the US told them, hold your horses until the war on Gaza stops. Now the war on Gaza stopped, but now the Houthis have been listed on a terrorist list. In relation to Iran, Farah spoke about that. It's not clear. Yes, Trump wants maximum pressure, but that's not the end of the game. There has to be a policy and a strategy as to how to deal with Iran, especially that there are differences between what the US and other Western countries want from Iran as opposed to what the region wants from Iran. So the Western countries were focused more on the nuclear dimension. The region was focused more on proxies and Iranian role in the region. Finally, on Gaza and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, there were efforts by the previous administration in relation to normalization, and a deal was reached. It was very close to being signed, but then the 7th of October took place. But at the same time, when this deal took place, that had two components, one of them pertaining to the relations between Saudi Arabia and the US, and the second in relation to normalization. The US was supposed to persuade Netanyahu to accept the deal, both on the bilateral front between the US and Saudi Arabia, as well as on the normalization front, and there was a Palestinian component in this agreement. And of course, it included the move towards an end game of a two-state solution. The US, the Biden administration at the time, went to Netanyahu. He said, I will not accept it. Because if I accept it, then my coalition would fall. Now, when Trump goes, as far as I'm concerned, the Saudis can tell him, well, we reached an agreement, but the Biden administration could not deliver Netanyahu. Would you be able to deliver Netanyahu? Because our understanding of what is required did not change. As a matter of fact, it has become more important to address the issue of establishing a Palestinian state now, after the 7th of October and what happened in Gaza, than it was before. So what will the Trump administration policy be in relation to this issue? It remains to be seen. The thing that I'm worried about most is that President Trump indicated that within 1 month, he will come up with a position in relation to settlements and annexation. And if this decision is in the wrong direction, then the situation will be complicated even further.
Yossi, now your judgment also to what you expect from Trump and the region.
Well, from our experience, he is totally unexpected. Whatever he does, I mean, maybe he would like to do good things. Maybe he wants the Nobel Prize. Maybe he will bring peace to the Middle East, and maybe not. So, with all my humble experience, I cannot extrapolate anything for the future. Speaking about President Trump, I must admit that I was shocked that he was re-elected, because in the first election, you don't know the candidate, and many people who are elected in democracies are surprising for the better. Okay, without names, but in his case, he proved himself in the first term, and to be re-elected is something which is very strange. So since then, since his re-election, I became a very careful person.
Okay, I think that's probably the summary for something. But Hiba, you have the privilege of the summary from your view, from a Palestinian point of view, but you know much more than just Jerusalem.
Well, I think, I agree with everything that's been said by my colleagues and friends here. It is really very difficult for a Palestinian to witness what is going on. I mean, President Trump seems to make, as Yossi said, decisions off the cuff. Does not take into account the interests of the people of the region. So our worry, I mean, we live in uncertainty, we live in worry, we live in a lack of security, really, because now the worry is that the West Bank will be next. And the idea of displacement is not off the table. So we have to be very careful. We have a very difficult situation with a weak government in Ramallah. The Palestinian Authority is very weak, does not have the legitimacy. The Gaza situation is very dire. So between the two and the regional instability right now with Syria and so forth, to sum it up, it is not very promising in the foreseeable future. So we really need some strategic planning, some strategic direction in order to salvage what we can salvage as Palestinians, and make sure that we continue to work with the Saudis, with Egypt, with Jordan, with our friends in the region, Europe now, in order to ensure that we stay part of the game.
Thank you very much. If I may resume this 1 hour of discussion, I would say we have a Trump plan where we don't know exactly what it means. The assumption is it's not realistic to realize, and if it would destabilize heavily Egypt and Jordan, with consequences which we just have touched a little bit on. We have, for the first time, an alternative Arab plan from Egypt, which I think is something new and something important to build on, I would suggest. And if I may add, maybe we also can work more on a European Arab initiative in order to work on this to see whatever we can do without Trump. And third, as far as the region is concerned, we don't know yet. I think that is probably the best answer. We have some indications. But we also know, and I think this is the conclusion, that the solution, the peace solution in the whole region, including Israel, will depend on the solution of the Palestinian conflict. I think Hesham made it very clear. So unfortunately, we have to wait and see what Trump is coming out with as a plan on the annexation in the West Bank. So we have a clearer picture. But I think that is what we can say within 1 hour on the situation in the region with Trump and after Trump. No, not after Trump, with Trump. Thank you very much for listening, and have a good day.